A man only has his word. Coming from a senior lady whose kids were from different fathers and whose current husband was a closet homosexual. She was criticizing my trade work, which was partially completed. Edit. She was insinuating my work wasn't as good as I was assuring her it was going to turn out halfway through the process. She was saying that if I couldn't live up to what I was saying, I wasn't a real man. It was a bizarre take from someone so unaware of how absurd their life was in perspective. Story 1. I overheard a conversation between two girls in my class. One said her ex was not a real man because he started crying when she broke up with him. To make it even worse, the male teacher agreed. Story 2. My first wife told me that I wasn't a real man because I wouldn't hit her. I couldn't get out of that marriage fast enough. Thankfully, we didn't have kids, so I never saw or heard from her again. Story 3. One super nice woman informed me that if my flaccid penis couldn't helicopter, I wasn't a real man. Dick size shaming and harassment are super messed up. Story 4. I have big hands, so when I'm forced to hold a small cup by the handle, I put my pinky finger out so my hand doesn't cramp up from smashing all my fingers in there to hold it. My wife says in disgust that it makes me look girly. I always respond, if you care so much, then get me a bigger cup. Story 5. Had a woman over for a home-cooked dinner. She asked who cleans my house and how much they cost as I started to make dinner. I told her I don't pay someone to clean my house. I just always pick up after myself. She told me real men don't clean or cook. Didn't even make it to dinner before I asked her to leave. She started freaking out and saying things like, you know it's the 2020s now. It's okay to just come out of the closet and get yourself some dick. All because I keep a clean house. People are insane. Story 6. Didn't happen to me, but I remember a while ago, there was a debate among friends about first date etiquette. We agreed that if the man asked the woman out, it would be safe to assume he is paying, but they should talk about it. One of the girls brought up how she recently went on a date and the guy paid for part of the bill with a gift card. He was a member who received a ton of rewards for reviews and frequent dining. She was just up in arms while the rest of us waited for her to finish. That was it. She said he wasn't a man because he had to use gift cards to pay. What? Who cares how the bill is paid for? There's a reason why she was absolutely single for years. Story 7. My ex-girlfriend was cheating on me with a guy who jogs. She said I wasn't a real man because I do jiu-jitsu, literally fighting other men instead of jogging. Story 8. When she came over one day and heard me singing along to Françoise Hardy, she stated only gay people or women would like French music from the 1960s. We are actually good friends now, just some compatibility issues like not believing dinosaurs were real and despising women's suffrage. Glad to see a lot of Françoise Hardy fans. I want him to come back. Check out Joe Dassin, another major artist. Story 9. Because I didn't want to change my car oil myself, I took it to the dealership. For your information, at the time I was in my first engineering job as a test engineer for jet engines and was helping assemble prototypes in a wind tunnel. Clearly, I have no mechanical ability. Story 10. I was in love with this one girl, but she was always dating other guys and mostly stringing me along for favors. One night while they were out, her boyfriend got arrested and needed someone to pick up his car. It was a manual transmission, so she couldn't drive it, so I showed up. For the life of me, I couldn't drive it either. I grew up on manual transmissions, and he had an old Volkswagen Beetle. I basically couldn't get it beyond first gear and would stall out each time. She was angry. After a few minutes, she started yelling and said, I knew I should have called a real man for this. She ended up calling her ex, and I stuck around out of curiosity to see what I was doing wrong. This older guy shows up, gets in the car, and the same exact thing happened to him too. This made her even more upset, and I got to say something like, do you have another real man you can call? She was not happy about that. Story 11. I declined sex with this persistent girl I never had any interest in. She proceeded to call me a coward and tell people I am gay. I was actually interested in her roommate, my now girlfriend of about 5 years. Story 12. This was years and years ago. I'm a single dad, and my daughter really wanted to try out hair braids. I tried to braid her hair, but I'm all thumbs, and despite having long hair myself, It was never something I picked up. A lot of the women I know have some great hair braids. So when they'd come over, they'd often braid my daughter's hair and sometimes mine. So I found one of those courses that teaches general hairstyling, including how to braid hair. The class was mostly women, of course, so whatever, I was just there during some free time to learn how to do this. It didn't take more than a few days for a few of the women there to make comments about it being weird or strange that I was willing to learn how to braid my kid's hair and style it like she wanted. Full-blown comments on my intentions of being there and questions about how much of a man I really am. No, making my kid happy does not make me less of a man. It makes me a better dad. Yeah, it's this cliche bit, but I've gotten a lot more attention on this than I ever expected. Don't let anyone tell you what being a real man is. Just be yourself. As a dad, my focus is on doing the best I can by them and making sure they know I'm always around for them. If it means I need to pretend to drink tea from a princess cup or pretend to have a love for Fortnite, then I'll go ahead and do it to make them happy. Story 13. I know a guy. He is the only income in the house. He provides for her and her 9-year-old daughter, who is not his. He works 12-hour days. He gets home, and she has usually spent her day lying in bed watching Netflix. So after a 12-hour day, he needs to clean the house and make dinner. When they fight, her go-to is, "I need a real man who can provide for me, unlike you." She is in her 30s and has never worked a day in her life. Story 14. For the same button-down dress shirt from two different women. Woman 1, you're not wearing an undershirt. That's something a little kid would do, not a grown man. Woman 2, 2 to 3 months later, you're wearing an undershirt with that? That's what little boys do. A real man doesn't wear undershirts. In conclusion, real men both wear and don't wear undershirts. Thanks for coming to my talk. Story 15. Not getting a credit card. I was unemployed. How was I supposed to convince the bank to issue me a credit card? She even said I should have gotten a platinum. Story 16. I don't argue enough. I'm not unwilling, but nothing gets accomplished in a heated exchange. If I can't get my point across relatively calmly, then I'll wait until we calm down and have a rational conversation. Story 17. She was obese, and I wasn't attracted to her. She aggressively hit on me, and I told her politely I wasn't interested. With no explanation given on my part, she immediately jumped to something along the lines of real men find thick women like myself very attractive. I told her to go find one of those guys. Story 18. When I cried when a good friend died. On the first day, it was okay. I was still devastated after 2 weeks and sometimes lost it when something made me remember him. Her advice was to man up. Story 19. My ex would give you a list, but here are a few honorable mentions. Because I didn't fight guys just because she didn't like them. Because I really refused the idea of providing for a woman so she could be lazy and stay at home. Note, no kids were involved. Because I work in information technology and not as a luthier or something. Because I didn't give up everything else. Because I didn't agree with all her religious and political beliefs. Because I disagreed with her about how a woman has to do nothing but lie there during sex. Because I had my own opinion. Story 20. I get pedicures. I was in the military and I had frostbite in my toes during a deployment, so I want my nails to be healthy. Plus, it's my business. A female colleague heard about it and asked me if I get my vagina waxed too. She basically went around saying I'm not a man because I get my toes cleaned and treated by a professional. Story 21. I, as a woman, have received criticism on my husband's behalf because he likes to read. Apparently, that's not considered manly. I'm fine with it. We both like to read. Story 22. Drinking a Coke with lunch at work in Berlin. A German woman in her 50s comes into the room. You are drinking a Coke? My husband would never drink a Coke. It's not a man's drink. Well, I'm sorry his fragile masculinity doesn't allow him to enjoy delicious beverages. Guten Mittagessen. Story 23. My best friend's mother was driving me to his memorial service after he passed away from cancer. We stopped at a Taco Bell first because we were all hungry. I bought 2 chalupas. She was apparently offended that I didn't inhale my food immediately. Isn't that what men do? Was her comment. Apparently, you're not a man unless you eat like a duck and refuse to enjoy flavor. She also made some kind of weird comment that she was confident I knew the band Village People. I'm white and grew up in the 90s. Everyone knows Village People. Who doesn't know YMCA and Macho Man? Story 24. Just recently, a woman making more than me insisted I pay for everything because that's a man's job. So her money was hers, but mine was to be shared. I assumed it was cultural since she was Saudi, but I still left. Story 25. Enjoying gaming in general. Apparently, I need to grow up and invest my money in something that matters. I enjoy gaming, so that matters to me. I work hard at my job for 50 to 60 hours a week. Why shouldn't I do something that I enjoy? Story 26. My wife and I had some problems early on because I like to play video games, whether on the PC or console. I usually play after the kids go to bed or on the weekends when she is watching a show I am not interested in. Things were fine for a while, but her mother and grandmother started to make a bunch of comments, eventually leading to my wife complaining to me about it in front of them, while they backed her up. Eventually, the comment was made that real men don't play video games. I deadpanned, "Oh, what do real men do? Sleep with prostitutes? Have multiple affairs? Hang at the bar? Be hidden gambling addicts?" Basically describing the multiple failed marriages of the above ladies. I feel like I am letting you off cheap. Time to head to the wasteland and headshot some super mutants. Story 27. Chun-Li would disagree. Anyway, my masculinity was called into question when I went on a weekend break with my then-girlfriend, who went through my wash bag and found some facial moisturizer and a pair of tweezers. The tweezers were because I get the occasional ingrown hair in my beard, and they bugged the hell out of me. Story 28. A girl in college once told me that I was not a real man because I could not open an imported beer bottle with just my hand. Then, some guy stepped in, grabbed the bottle from me, and tried to open it until he shattered the neck and hurt his hand. She just laughed at him for being a goof. Story 29. An office worker, a female, wanted me to carry her bags whenever we went for meetings. After the third time, I didn't take her laptop bag, and that upset her. She said that my conduct was unbecoming of a real gentleman. Story 30. We went out to dinner. There was a noodle dish that looked really good, but it was topped with sliced almonds. I don't like almonds, so I asked the waitress for no almonds on it. She gave me trouble for weeks about how I should have been a grown man and just eaten it. She acted as though I was a 5-year-old who refused to eat his vegetables. I just don't like almonds. Story 31. My dad and his wife told my husband he wasn't a real man for sticking up for me because we didn't want to suck it up and fawn over their grandsons only 1 month after we suffered our own loss. Story 32. Video games. The majority of women in Western Asia still think it's childish and not manly. Also, cooking and taking care of your hygiene apparently makes you gay or something. Story 33. Not going full Karen on our landlord after the fridge broke down and he did not replace it right now. It was frustrating, but I did not expect him to produce a brand new fridge immediately. I tried explaining to her that pointlessly hassling him about it was more likely to make him work slower, but she would not have it, calling me a wimp, pushover, not assertive enough, etc. Story 34. Well, I'm not sure if this answers it correctly, but I've had many family members of all sexes tell me that I'm not a man. The reason is because I have emotions, and I can't simply gloss over the fact that I recently found out I was sexually abused or assaulted as a child, with repressed memories and such. So yeah, sexual issues due to abuse make me a wimp, apparently. Story 35. Anything animation. My ex-wife scolded me for liking animation, 3D, drawing, anime, whatever. She thought it was childish and stupid. Funny enough, I am a mechanic and an amateur carpenter and welder. She thought those were appropriate activities for a man. Story 36. Not doing her chores without it ever being communicated she wanted me to when I was there on the weekend, such as raking leaves, mowing grass, finding things that needed fixing, paying to get her oil changed, and cleaning up while she napped with her daughter. This was the 4th time she dumped me in a year, so I reflected pretty hard on it. Her reason was I should man up and do it because she's a single mom, Well, that single mom only worked 3 days a week, only had one kid full-time, and I lived an hour away, so I went to stay Friday to Sunday. She would drive her daughter around on the lawnmower for fun, but wouldn't mow the grass. Her mom came and cleaned for her several days a week and did their laundry, and her stepdad would ride his mower down the street to mow her grass. It turns out they also paid all her bills so she could do the bare minimum, and her kids lived on junk food and had zero routine or structure. No wonder she was so eager for me not to pull out laughing. Got away without getting trapped. Thank God. Story 37. Apparently, I am not a real man because I am an immigrant and struggle with acquiring stability easily, and choose to go to school instead of flaunting my money by buying expensive items, and being emotionally aware of my situation and being able to articulate my grievances for dialogue and not a victimized self. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Story 38. Had a woman make a pass at me when she was pretty drunk. I declined, obviously, because she was drunk. She then told me to act like more of a man. Super happy I declined that invitation. Also, that's definitely not the sort of man I ever want to be. Story 39. Not keeping a manicured lawn, my neighbor, while screaming at me for some nonsense or other, told me I am not a man because I do not keep my lawn to her standards. It gets cut, I keep it growing decently, but it is by no means manicured, nor will I ever put that kind of effort in. I never really thought of it as a challenge to my manhood, though. Story 40. My worst moment will likely always be the so-called friend who told me to man up, knowing full well my depression is inherited, and I've been through a significant amount of trauma, leaving me prone to suicide. What I didn't know at the time, and it can absolutely be a thing, was that I had low testosterone that needed to be treated. When I told this friend, years later, that I'd had a serious illness and had been in and out of a coma for 4 days, her response was, "I'm not really interested. Good luck in life." 2 months later, after clearing out my blocked messages, I noticed she'd texted me asking to borrow money since we periodically swapped money back and forth. Nope,